Hello and welcome to another really weird video. Today I'm going to ask and hopefully answer the question, why am I still playing Valheim? Uh, Survival games are not a genre that I typically love. They're a genre that actually most of the time I actively dislike. So the question of why am I still playing this one is one that I've been asking myself a lot. And I think the answer lies in the exploration. I think that what this game may lack in a couple of factors that I like in video games, such as a more robust story. I was about to say the combat, but I actually kind of like the combat in this game too, but we'll get into that. The big draw for me is the exploration, what I can find, what's going on in the world, what's happening, the map is pretty big. I want to explore more of that. And then also the fun of progressing that I think this game as a survival game has that other games don't. Um, there is progression in all of the other survival games that I've played and not enjoyed, but it's not quite the same. So in Valheim, you have different bosses that you can fight, but you also have your individual skills that you level up by using the weapons, Final Fantasy Tactics style. And what I like about that is that I can level anything. I can go, hey, I want to level my bow. Let me use my bow to try and kill this deer. I can go, hey, I want to level my punching, which is what I started doing as a joke and then actually really enjoyed it. I want to level up clubs. I want to level up swords. And so the more that I use something and the more that I play around with something, the more that I progress with something, the more that progression translates into actual progression. I level up my running, I can run for longer, I can run faster. I level up my jumping, I can jump higher. And that just feels really satisfying to me. This game has a really interesting core loop, and it's not perfect. I'm going to get into some of my big complaints with it later. But it is a really interesting core loop that I really enjoy of use your tools, break down some trees and cut them down for their stuff. And then once you've gotten that enough, you can cut down bigger trees because you have a better skill for it. You can cut them down faster. You'll eventually get to trees that you can't cut because they're made out of harder wood and you need a better axe for. So then you have to go deal with bosses. And it keeps rolling in that regard of new biome, new area to go to, new thing to see, and then bam, once you've cleared that, it's time to take on the next boss and you can move to the next tier. And then you have another biome that's extremely dangerous and will probably kill you. But my tame boars have escaped. There are so many of them everywhere now. And I feel bad about killing them. But for every step that I take in this game, I'm getting something for it in a way that, as much fun as I have playing Raft with Patrick, or as much fun as something like a DayZ could be with friends, or a Rust or an Ark, it just doesn't have that same progression for me that this has. Again, there's just something about the fact that no matter what I'm doing, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting better, I'm able to do more. That resonates with me really well. Progression is something that matters a lot to me in video games. Look at that shot, by the way. And I just really like that Valheim lets me do that. Tie that into the exploration that we talked about before. The base building is solid. I don't think it's great, and I'll get into that as part of my complaints in a little bit. But it all comes in together to make a really interesting whole that I didn't even walk in. That makes this game a lot more fun to play than I ever would have thought it would have. Because I have historically said many times, as we've said, I don't like survival games. But now I have to change that. It's not I don't like survival games. It's I don't like specific things in survival games. Because it turns out survival games can be kind of cool. I really like this one. This one's a lot of fun. And I believe fully it is because of that progression. Don't look at how terrible my chest management is. My chests are a huge mess. It's fine. I'll deal with it at some point. Not right now. There's still so much I want to find too. I want to find the merchant. Figure out what's going on with him. I want to explore more of the plains and the swamps. And even if it was not for the fact that I'm playing with my friends, which automatically makes it even better, right? I think I would probably still be playing Valheim just for the exploration, just for the hunt and the thrill of hunting things down and how much fun that can be, I like this game a lot. It definitely has its issues. And once we get on a boat, which we're going to do in a minute, I'll talk about those issues. But I wanted to get this meat first. Because I am obsessed with collecting and cooking all my stuff. I am still recovering from COVID, so I'm sorry if I have to mute my mic to cough. I like this game a lot so far. There are definitely some big issues with it, though, for me. The biggest one is probably when you die, you lose skills. You have to level them up again, which, I mean, that's doable, right? I can come in here to my dojo, to this rock that I set up, and I can level up my sword again and get it back up to where I want it to be. But at one point, it was almost at level 50. You know, I'd really like to be back there again because I hit like a truck back then. Granted, the good thing about death in this game is that your body never goes away. Even if the marker goes away, the body's still there. So you can always come back and get your stuff, which is very nice. Sometimes you're going to get into positions where it's very difficult to come back and get your stuff, but you can do it. I like the way repairing works in this game, where it doesn't actually cost you any resources to repair, and you can just repair as much as you want. I think that's really nice. I need to drop this poison resist stuff before I go, because I don't want to waste it. Ooze there. There. I need to feed my boars. Then we're going to sail for a little bit. I'm going to talk about some of my issues, and then we're going to call it. I think the building is pretty solid. The actual, like, base building part. I think my biggest issue with base building is probably the... Let's go ahead and put some more wood on to cook. Charcoal. The way that things snap together and the way that support works. I don't think it's communicated very clearly to the player. I mean, stuff turns blue when it will hold weight. But at the same time, like, you'll see there's a little dock I was trying to build out here to be able to bridge out across the water. I can't build it any further. I just can't. Nothing will support it any further after this. Which is kind of frustrating. Throw that out there for my boars so they have more food. But all these boars are also mine because they keep escaping somehow. How we doing on this ship? I wish things didn't take so much damage from weather. Specifically things that are built to not take damage from weather, I think probably shouldn't. A little frustrating how much damage boats take from weather. I do like, though, while I'm talking about that, the fact that walls and roofs and things like that will only get to half damage. They won't break from the weather. But boats will, I believe. And then mobs will also attack boats, which can be a little annoying, you know? But for the most part, I really like this game. I do think that combat gets a little weird sometimes. When it comes to height, this game is still in early access, so I'm willing to let that slide, obviously, because they're working on that. It's going to get better. The fact that trolls can follow you out into the water is a little frustrating. It's a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. What are we doing right now, boat? What are we doing? Why aren't we turning? Come on. There we go. I do think that the wind can be extremely annoying because when the wind is against you, you have to drop down to just using rudder control and you move really slow, which can be really annoying when there's a sea serpent chasing you. But I think at the same time that the sailing's actually really fun and adds a lot of depth to this game. There's a lot of stuff to find out in the ocean, which is really cool. I think this game graphically is pretty good. Graphics aren't a thing that I super care about, but I do think the ocean looks really cool. The bosses so far have looked really cool. I'm still only a couple of those in. I just think there's a lot to love about this game as someone who doesn't like survival games, and it really surprised me how much I like this game. Because again, now I have to change the way I look at it. It's not that I don't like survival games, it's that I don't like survival games that don't have what feels like a steady sense of progression. Whereas Valheim not just has a steady sense of progression, it also has a really big world to explore. Sea serpents that attack you while you're on the water. It has a boat drifting off in the middle of the ocean over here. It has a shore right there that we're about to ram into. There's just so much to see and do, and I really like it. I do wish it was a little bit faster to get through some places. Like at some point we may just have to cut a channel through down here to be able to get to this part. because all of that's in the way, you know? And I would like to be able to explore out to that stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot more to find and see, and that excites me. Like, look at how big this world is. What's on the edge, you know? I want to see, I want to know. I think this game is really cool. And if you're somebody that, like me, has not touched it because you don't like survival games, you know, there are definitely some things to think about complaint-wise. It's definitely still in early access. They're still changing stuff. Boats can randomly take a lot of damage from waves in a way that's kind of unsatisfying. Losing your skills is not great when you die. You don't lose all of them, but they go down quite a bit. Like, for instance, I've probably died 12 times since I had my unarmed at level 45. It's back down to 23 now. That's a substantial drop. But at the same time, what Valheim has given me is a really enjoyable world to explore with a lot of cool stuff to do in it, and a combat system that I find actually pretty engaging. It is really annoying when enemies are on a different incline from you. You can't hit them, but as long as you are willing to dodge or roll or block, you can get through some high-level areas that you shouldn't be in yet. You can see where I died. Because you can survive as long as you're careful, which I think is really cool. This is really just a rambly video because I wanted to talk about Valheim and the things that I like about it. I definitely think it's worth checking out, but just keep those things in mind because there can be some big annoyances when you die because you didn't know that the things in the swamp could poison you, and the poison does 10 damage a tick, and you only had 70 health because you didn't know you were going to need more than that, you know? There's a lot about this game that you have to learn the hard way by just experiencing it. There's not a lot that it tells you. Early on, you'll have a crow that will tell you a lot of things, and then later on, he just kind of stops showing up. You got to figure things out for yourself. Where do you go from bronze and tin, getting into copper? Where do you go from there? Next up is iron, but how are you going to find iron? Well, you got to figure it out, you know? I like this game a lot. I like this game a whole lot, and I don't mind finding things out the hard way. I think there's joy to be had in that as well. But if you're the kind of person that doesn't enjoy that, know that you're probably going to have to look some stuff up every now and then. There's another boat over here. We keep losing boats. But either way, let me know your thoughts on Valheim in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Valheim has to offer.